Okay, in this screencast, we're going to look at the chocolate worksheet. And what we want to do in here is, let me make this a little bit smaller, is we have a list of employees here. So first thing, let me freeze the panes so that we always have the headers at the top. And we want to know how many employees do we have and how many employees do we have that have region information in this column. So to figure out the number of employees, I'm going to use the count function. And the count function will do equals count. And it's very simple. We will just go over here. We'll start at let's use quarter one as an example. Actually, let's use total just in case quarter one is missing some data for someone, which I don't think it is. But we'll select and all of the entire range of values here and close the function, and we've got 51 employees. Okay, now why did I use the total column? Well, it's because the count function works only on numbers. If I try to do count and go over here and do it with names, I will get 0 because count only works with numbers. So how are we going to tackle this thing for figuring out how many employees have region data? Well, the function for that is count A. And count A will count any cell that's not blank. Okay. So we have 37 people with region data. Now what that means is that since it counts any cell that's not blank, is you can get into a little bit of trouble. Let's say I put a space in cell C8. You'll notice that this goes up to 38 just because there's a space in here. So some people, instead of using the delete key to delete data, they'll use the space bar, and it can screw things up if somebody's relying on there actually being a blank cell when they're doing something like counting the data. Okay, let's flip over to the DOSH tab, the payroll tab here, and let me show you some things in here. Let me show you, first of all, we've got this list of names here, okay? Maybe we don't want them in all caps. Okay, what can we do about that? Well, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say equals, let's say I want that to just capitalize the first letter of each name. I'm going to do proper and then go select this, and now it will put it in the format that maybe we're more used to. Okay, and if I fill that down, it does that for everybody's name. Okay, capital, first letter, and then lowercase the rest. You can also use lower, which would make everything lowercase, or if you wanted to use upper, that would make everything uppercase. So we're back to uppercase, but upper, lower, and proper. Something else that you can do is maybe we want to know how many years have they worked for this company. How many years have they worked for us? So let's insert a column here. How many years has this person worked for us? Okay, well, you can use dates in formulas because dates are really numbers. This date here, October 26, 2012, if I change that to a number format, it's really 41,208. Okay, because the Excel starts, I believe it's at January 1st, 1900, and we can figure that out. We'll just put a 1 in here, and that's already formatted as a date. So January 1st, 1900, what I really did is I put 1 in that cell. Okay, and so it's the number of days since January 1st, 1900, including January 1st, 1900. And so we can write a formula here and say equals C2, and I'm going to use the F4 key to make that an absolute reference. And again, what that will do is then when I fill this down, it will always refer to cell C2. It won't switch to C3 and C4 and C5 as I fill this down. I'll say equals C2 minus C5, the cell right next to here. And so this person, now you'll notice it puts it in a date format by default, but I can go up here and switch it to comma style. They've worked here for 1,918.86 days, and it's 0.86 because right now it's 8:44 p.m. So it puts the 0.86 in there. Now I probably want to put parentheses around here and divide by 365 so I can see how many years they've worked for us. So this person's worked here 5.26 years, and then I can fill this down. This is 6.73. This person just started a year and 2/3 ago. Okay, and so we'll fill it down, and it calculates how how many years everybody worked here. So you can use dates in formulas just as well as you can use numbers in formulas. Let's go on to the next tab here, sales by employee. What I want to show you on here is how to format some data. Okay, so we've got some sales by employee listed here, but the data is kind of ugly. Okay, well the easiest way to format data is to just use these predefined number formats that are right here. And so let's change everything to comma style. Okay, and it puts the decimals at the end. Now all of these are whole numbers, so I don't care about the decimals. So I can click this decrease decimal twice and it'll take the decimals off. Maybe I want dollar signs on the top row. I'll make this a little smaller so it shows up on your screen. Actually, let's just do it for the first column and then I'll show you something else. So we'll click that, it puts the dollar signs in. Maybe I want the totals to also have dollar signs. I can use the format painter for that. And the way the format painter works is I'm going to select the cell that's already in the format I want. I'll click on the format painter and then I'll click down here and it'll put the same formats on that cell. And it'll only do it for the first cell that you click unless you double click the format painter. Then it'll do it for every single cell that you select. It'll always format it the same until you unselect or deselect the format painter. So if this was boldface and it had a yellow background and I did the format painter, every cell that I click the format painter on would do that as well. Okay, now I want to turn that off, take the bold off. I have this column set up exactly how I want, except for I want to center this, and then I want to boldface that, and let's make it a little bit bigger, and then let's put a thick underline at the bottom of that cell. Okay, thick bottom border. Now I've got that column how I want it, so what I'll do is I'll click the format painter, and I'll just paint the rest of these cells, and boom, now I've taken all the formats across exactly how I want them. Something else that you can do is you could use cell styles. And so there are predefined styles, or you can set your own styles up. So maybe I want my headings to look like this here. Go to cell styles and pick headings. Maybe I want them to look like heading 1. Okay. And then let's say I want these to look like this. Or, let's pick all of them, I guess. Make them look like that. And then I'll have my totals look like something else. Okay, and so we can use the styles that are predefined, or you can set up your own styles or pull styles in from other worksheets. So some people like to use a style for data entry, for example, or here's one that's already set up for calculations. So if a cell is a calculation, like this total cell, these are all calculations, is you might want to set that to a calculation style so somebody knows, okay, I don't need to type anything in when it looks like that because that's a calculation. Whereas this is a data entry cell, and let's see if they have one set up for data entry. I don't see one here, but you could set one up for data entry so that I only enter data in the cells with the blue background and whatever, and call it data entry, and then people would know that's where I should enter data. Okay, now one other thing I want to show you here is let's copy these down, and then I want to copy these totals down, but I just want to do the values, so I'll use the paste values that I have on my toolbar. Now notice I lost the formats when I did that. Okay, so let's put the formats back in. Sometimes you've got data like this going across the screen, and you think, oh, I'd rather have that going up and down in columns. I want all the months in this column, so let's type the months, and then total sales in that column. Okay, but let's delete this here. How do I do that easily? I don't want to copy all that. Well, if you do a copy and then go down to here, there's a way under paste special where you can say transpose the data. Okay, and I don't want to take the formats with me, so I'll change that to just be the values. So we're going to transpose the data, which means put whatever's in a row in a column and put whatever's in a column in a row, and now we've got the same data transposed right here. And sometimes that can be a useful tool. So paste, special, and transpose will change data that's in rows into data that's in columns. One more thing I want to show you when it comes to formatting is using this conditional formatting feature on the Home tab of the ribbon. This can be real handy. Sometimes we've got a bunch of data like this and we want to see, for example, which of these numbers is greater than 250,000. So let's say highlight the cells that are greater than 250,000. Okay, and you can see it's already doing it for me. Light red with dark red. I usually pick a custom format so then I can say, you know, make it bold, make it with a red background. The fore color can be, let's see what would show up well on red, a yellow. Okay, like that. So now it highlighted anything greater than 250,000 according to how I wanted it highlighted. So that can be a nice way, especially if you're doing like something like credit limits and you want to highlight people that are over their credit limit. You can also write formulas in here. I won't show you that now, but you could do a custom rule, and so here you can pick some that are predefined, but you can say, write a formula. So you could say if cell A1 is greater than B1 or whatever, do a certain format on the cell, that kind of thing. You can also use these color scales, which with the data that we have here, you can see how those work. Is it highlights it, and what we should do, I suppose, is clear the rule that I wrote before and do the color scales. Well, I guess that I already had cleared that rule. And so what it does is you can see the scale here is from red to green. And so what it does is it highlights the low numbers green and the high numbers red. And then everything else is kind of a shade in between. And so that's kind of handy so that you can see, anything visual is better than words. A picture's worth 1,000 words. That's true. When it comes to looking at data like this and being able to quickly internalize what it is you're looking at. Something else that just came out, I believe, in the 2010 version of Excel is something called spark lines. And so let me demonstrate what that is for you here. Is on the Insert tab, I can say Insert a line, and it'll say what's the data range that you want to use for this spark line. And so I want to use January through December. And a spark line is nothing more than a tiny little line graph. And so you can see our sales went up at the beginning of the year and then, kind of went down and remained fairly steady through the end of the year. So here you can see that in February was much higher. And so if we fill the spark line down, it works just like a number. You can fill it down. For this employee, it picked up at the end of the year. And you can see in December it really picked up. December is still colored blue because I didn't fill the conditional formatting over earlier. If I do that, you'll be able to see that a little better. This employee peaked, looks like in March or April. So here you can see they did in April was their highest month. And so spark lines are something kind of handy that can add that little bit of visual element to data. Rather than looking at the actual numbers, put a little spark line at the end. So again, some interesting formatting ideas for you, and I'll save the file and leave this in the file for you to grab off D2L.